Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lizard Brains podcast. I'm your host, DJ Allison Drini. I'm joined by my co-host, Tom Gorman, and we have a guest. This guest was the Skip Barber Mazda Speed Pro Challenge champion and MX-5 Cup Car champion, IMSA Prototype Lights champion. He won a Rolex in the LMPC class during the Daytona 24. He got third at the 2018 Charlotte Champ Tour, or the Match Tour. He was a TCR winner with some guy named Tom Gorman. He won races in GT4 cars, both in IMSA and SRO. And yesterday, he won a GT3 race at VIR. It's Kenton Koch. How's it going,
Hello.
Kenton?
Dang, you killed that intro, DJ. Hi, Kenton.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, you did good. That was a lot of words.
Did you catch the
catch
middle
the
of
little
it?
nugget in there?
I didn't. I was too busy trying to find a different picture. What was the nugget? What did I not do that you said that I did?
No, I listed off like all these like amazing achievements, but then in the middle of it, I put third at the 2018 Charlotte Match Tour.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because freaking Tom destroyed me.
No, that was the year after. This year, I got you.
Okay,
Oh.
okay.
Dang, you're rubbing it in. Yeah, but did you win an IMSA race yesterday, DJ?
No, I did not. I won a league race in iRacing. That was kind of fun.
It's
There
a
you
good
go.
day. It's a good day. Those are hard, man. I bet.
Yeah. It's probably a little bit easier than winning a GT3 at VIR, but you know, we all have our own battles.
Yeah. Dude, congratulations. That's your first GT3 win in IMSA, right?
Yeah, that's the first one. And like the last time I won a WeatherTech race was the 24, so 2017. So my first race in WeatherTech was a win, but it's been since then, since I've won one. So it's pretty neat. I've been pinching myself like forever now. So yeah, it's been neat.
How's the racing hangover? Because this is literally the day after.
Yep.
I, if I'm honest, I can't even believe it still.
So you're still on a high.
It's been oh yeah, no, I mean it's interesting to still be getting messages in my inbox and whatnot, and but it was funny. Like last night, I already like messaged our engineer and my co-driver that I was like, okay, this is what we needed to be better and faster, and like this is what we need. I was like not even 4 hours after the race, and I was already trying to figure out what we could do to continue improving.
Yeah, you're trying to. You got the taste, and now you need more of it.
Is it just me, or are you like a little like, is the connection not good, or is it on my end?
Well, the only connection that matters is my end, so everything sounds great on my end.
No, we hear you great. Do you not hear us great?
Do you hear me great?
Yeah, Kenton sounds good.
Okay, all right. Then we'll
like
keep with it for some reason.
4-minute in sound check.
Did you just throw that in to make us give us our like once a week technical issue? Everything's perfectly fine, and you're just like,
I'm not even kidding.
Did you hear that?
It's like a little unfortunate.
Are you
scratchy?
Does it say that your connection on the bottom left of like the Discord thing, does it show like green, or does it show yellow or red?
Oh, it's good now. It's green. Yeah, it's green.
Yeah,
but yeah,
we're
you're
good to go
clear
then.
now.
Yeah, we're good to go.
Yeah, we're good.
I
We're
have
good.
been having internet issues every once in a while, but it never shows up on the podcast. Fingers crossed. I totally just ruined it. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah. Oh, all good.
Okay, so what's the best story from this past weekend? Like peak, other than we won. Like, give us like your peak of the weekend, on or off track.
My gosh. Yeah. So it was. I mean, I laugh about it now.
Here we go.
On the podium, it's been a while since I've been on the podium, obviously at the WeatherTech race, and there's a lot of people that show up to these things, and we walk up on the podium, and like there's just like a fairly large sea of fans, and in the front row there's like a kid, like being held by his dad, because like at VIR, like the podium is about 5 feet tall, and
Yep.
so like there's this child, and then right next to the child is a lady in a wheelchair, and it's like she's a paraplegic, like, and it's like an electric one, and she's sitting, and like the top of her head is like below the bottom of the stage, and like, dude, she's asking for it, like from the champagne spray
Oh no!
and
I was like,
everything.
what is she asking for?
I didn't. So we oh, there you go. I see you posted a picture there, Tom.
Yeah, there's the podium.
Yeah, so you see all these people, and like they're all putting their hands up, whatever. But we get spraying the champagne, and like I don't see this lady like in the front row because she's below the deck, and only when I step up, like I'm like spraying the champagne on the crowd, and they're like, "Rah!" And like the bottles are big bottles, like they're not like your little bottles that like, they fizzle out after 2 seconds. Like these suckers, like freaking, you keep shaking them and they just
Yeah.
keep producing.
Bottomless.
And like as I was expecting it when I released my thumb, like that, like it would be kind of fizzled out by then, but when I released it, like a lot came out, and all of it came out, and I looked at the projectile of of the fluid, and it goes straight on this lady's face. And like immediate regret. And like for me, like, because I looked down and I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like it was like mid thing, and she was like smiling, loving it. Like she was like, "It's okay," like as she's wording it. We can't hear each other because the music's blaring. But
Yeah.
that was
That's
probably
so funny.
the most like memorable thing of the whole time, was like watching this poor lady in a wheelchair get absolutely destroyed by champagne. And
No.
then
Winner's champagne. Winner's champagne.
yeah.
She's like part of the
Yeah,
experience
she
now.
Oh
earned it.
yeah,
She
no.
earned it, dude.
And then like the other part was I didn't realize how like vicious these fans are for hats. Like so they give us like 5 hats on the podium, and we do the hat dance. And every time we would change our hat, like the announcer would be like, "Okay, throw your hat, put your hands up, and this is what you're seeing here." And there was all the hats. There was like one for Michelin, there was one for VIR, and there was one for like the manufacturer, and all those I was throwing. And then WeatherTech had one, and it had like a first place like thing on the side. And like for me, like I don't usually keep my hats, but I keep all of the ones that are memorable to me. And this was the one that I was keeping. And like when I put it on, and they're like, "Okay, throw your hats," and like they're all like, "Give it to me," and I'm sorry, I'm keeping this one. And as I came off the podium, then there was just like a bunch of people wanting to take pictures, and I was like, "Oh my god, like this is
Did
crazy."
you have to protect the hat?
Yeah, no, they were, I'm telling you, like they were like, there was 5 people that came up to me, and they're like, "Can I have your hat?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry, man, like I'm keeping this one." And like the one, and that kid that was next to the lady in the wheelchair, I tossed him a hat, and I pointed him out. I was like, "You're freaking getting this hat," and because I was like, "It's the kid, you want to give the kid a hat." So
Yeah.
I pointed at him, and like tossed it to him, and so he got the hat, and he came up, and he was the cutest kid I've ever seen. He tried to give that hat to like a grown ass lady next to him, trying to be like a nice like kid, and she was like,
Aw.
"No, like no, like here, no, it's,"
What a nice
and she was
lady.
basically saying, "Yeah, no," but she like gave it back to him. She was like, "No."
Yeah.
But I tossed her a hat.
She got a hat anyways. You know what? That was a very
Yeah.
good political move from that lady, because if she would have taken the hat, she would have been a scumbag, but she declined it and got a hat of her own.
Yep, that's
Yeah.
what I thought. I was like, you're good. We're cool."
Yeah.
So
But yeah, that kid came up afterwards. Sorry, this is my final ding.
yeah, go ahead.
That kid came up after and wanted me to autograph it. I autograph it, and like I'm like, oh, have fun, like whatever, see ya. And like I was expecting maybe like a high five or like something, but he just goes up and hugs me.
Aw.
Like like I was like not expecting. He's like, okay, bye, and hugs me, and then pieces out. And I thought it was like the cutest thing. So
So
um, yeah,
Kenton's
there it is.
highlight, yeah. So Kenton's highlight from the weekend was him playing Hat God. So
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
he has all
I
this
mean,
Dude, I don't know
power
what it
over
is,
the
like
crowd.
yeah, I don't know what it is. I'm not like a kid person. I don't find kids interesting or like seek out spending time with them, but something about seeing kids at racetracks and like giving
Excited.
them the opportunity to tear down the barrier and like sit in the car or yeah, give them a hat or like give them the signature that they're so excited about even though they have no idea who you are as a individual person. You're just a race car driver that they're so stoked about. And I'm like I could give a like nothing about kids everywhere else, but at a racetrack like kids are like give them the experience because I remember that I would want that when I was a kid, but I didn't know
Totally.
if we were allowed to or whatever. Like if someone would be like, "Do you want to come sit in this race car?" when I was like 8, I'd be like, "What? Yeah, you know."
Yeah, exactly. That's it right there. I mean, like when I was like a young guy, like you hit it on the nail on the head. Like when I was like racing go-karts at 8 years old, and I went to Long Beach Grand Prix, and like all the autograph sessions were up. I was like that kid, like walking across the table, like
Oh,
getting
really?
all of the crap. Yeah. So and like Justin Wilson was like my guy. And yeah, so like that was like just a try to, as you know, like it's you got to give back to that, like got to give back to that to make a lasting impression, like so
Yeah.
cool.
Tom, did you have a specific racer that you looked up to when you were a kid?
No, I didn't even associate that there were people in the car really. Like I just like the cars racing.
Yeah.
In my mind, it was some like meta massive version of me when I was racing my Hot Wheels around in the basement. And like those cars don't have drivers either. I'm the driver, but I'm driving all of them.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, that totally makes sense.
That was me as a
No,
kid.
I think I
not
lived in the
really,
same
but
space. No, that
well,
totally makes sense. Like I lived in the same
I
space.
know.
Kenton, it literally wasn't until I think it was 2019 when Tom was racing TCR and you were in GT4 at Daytona. And
Mhm.
I remember I was in the crowd. Me and my dad drove down there to pick up the free race car. And I was in the crowd and I saw you climbing into the car. And it was like, that was the thing, was like, holy shit, people drive these. Which is like, it
Yeah.
sounds insane, but it was like, I've hung out with Kenton and now he's climbing out of the race car. And here he comes flying into turn 1 at like 160. That's so cool. So I
Yeah.
Oh
I
man.
don't think
Wait,
it's
okay.
normal to make the human driving the car like
Yeah, I mean, like
connection.
when I was at Mid Ohio as a kid, they would have the autograph sessions, but I wanted to watch the racing. So like if there was a race going on and the autograph session, like I didn't even want to go like in the paddock or
Yeah.
talk to the
Let's
drivers. Like I wanted to
watch.
watch the yeah. That was me. So I want to get back to VIR eventually because I know there's more about that. But
Yep.
can you give people who don't know who you are like a little history, how you got into motorsports or
Sure.
like how you landed here?
Yeah. I'll do a quick snippet. I started
Yeah.
in karting, and then I went into cars, and now I'm here, and that's it. I'm kidding. No.
Nice.
Yeah. So like my dad, my first memory as a child was watching my dad go through the desert in like a little VW Bug. Like I don't know if it's class 10 or class 11, but either way, it's like a VW Bug with like suspension on it.
I didn't know
Um,
your dad did that.
yeah, he stopped doing that when I was like 5 though. So
Okay.
he didn't do it like through my like years that I would have like really liked to maybe sit in it or something. But either way, like that's all I knew. Like playing with my road truck in the dirt as a toddler, and I turned 6 years old, and we went to the LA Auto Show, and like I'm from Southern California, so like that's what we did. We just go to the LA Auto Show. My dad loved cars, and just he always worked on stuff, and I was like always there with him working on whatever it was. Because yeah. Anyway, so there was a go kart at the LA Auto Show, and I asked, I was like, oh frick, like that looks cool. Like I want to do that. And they'd said I had to be 8. Like the people there said I had to be 8. I don't think it was a go kart. I think it was a Bandolero. But either
Oh,
way, I associated it as a go-kart. And I was like, I want to do that. And from the time I was 6 to the time I was 8 was like the longest 2 years of my life because that's all I could think about. And so I turned 8 and I was like, Dad, like, you remember that one time? And like literally the day I turned 8. And they were like, okay. And then like that Christmas, Santa brought a go-kart, and it was, like this little cart that, it was a piece of junk, but it was great. It was my piece of junk.
yeah.
What was it under
You
the
know,
tree?
no, it was in the garage. So
I'm
it
just
was
imagining it wrapped up.
definitely no, like I saw it immediately when we went to the garage, and it didn't even have like a motor on it. It had no wheels. Like it just was like a frame with a seat. And like the seat had like a rug in it because it was like that was what we used to like pat it, I guess. But um I was like, this is it. But anyway, so that was kind of like my intro, and then did karting, kind of from like a middle upper class family, and they could support me through karts and whatnot, at a, like a local and regional level. Uh, then we went to when I was like 15 or 16 years old. At this point in my life was kind of like, okay, what am I gonna do with my life? I guess I'm gonna go to college and get a normal job and do these things. And like my friend that I kind of looked up to did this karting shootout in Skip Barber, and I was 15 at the time and whatnot, and essentially uh, was that kind of gave me the thought, hey, maybe I could do that. That would be kind of cool to try. But the initial there's another story to how I even did the Skip Barber thing, and I'll talk about that later. But anyway, so did Skip Barber, did the shootout, won some scholarship money, did their regional series in MX5, and that was kind of where it then transitioned from MX5 regional series to their MX5 Pro series, and then MX5 Cup, IMSA Lights, and then into the 24. And then from there, like along the lines, kind of did a bit of coaching along the way, because when I saw Skip Barber, I was like, instructors, okay, they're making money. This is how they're doing it. This is probably maybe the only way that I'm going to be able to sustain this as a career. So along the ways as I started, racing, was kind of how I then decided that, okay, this is start coaching along the way, and was able to kind of get some clients doing that. But so yeah, that's kind of my like history through karting to cars to now coaching, sustaining driving now, and like did some like not owned, but managed a race team for 3 years with a guy that I coached. So we built that team from the ashes of Euro parts, essentially the program that Tom and I were a part of. And yeah, so got to learn how to register a trailer and rig and get it down the road and figure out how to feed people, put people up in a hotel, and then then figure out how to like race a car during that period of time and make sure it stays running. So, and then that folded and got another opportunity and with Random Vandals, and here I am. So, yeah, kind of up and down, and kind of had a lull in my career in 2019ish, 2020, and yeah, I kind of got lucky with the team thing, and that kind of rejuvenated stuff. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I had forgotten about that. So I mean, from getting to know you, you and I, we'll go into it later probably, but you and I got paired together kind of randomly, but we were maybe a little familiar with each other before that. And so we got to know each other much better as teammates. And you are an incredibly smart business person, like bar none. And I forgot that you ran that race team, but like I'm sure most of the details of running a race team are not that interesting. Like you said, like registering trailers. And I remember the nightmares you guys had with stuff, but what's the like, did you have any big enlightening takeaways for yourself as like a driver or a business person in motorsports running that team?
oh my gosh, yes. One, just what it takes to run a team, and
Yeah.
then what actually like matters and creating results. Because like there's like fluff, and then there's like what actually matters. And through, you know, like I said, the ashes of Euro parts, there was a lot of good people at that race team, and we, through knowing the crew guys and engineer Eric Peterson, you know, we essentially took a majority of the mechanics from that program to B Sport. And when Brian Putt, the guy who I coached that wanted to create a race team, asked me, he's like, "Hey, you want to like, you know, start a race team?" I was like, "Sure." I know nothing about this, but I know
You're like,
enough
yeah,
smart people.
But I'm the man for the
Um,
job.
yeah, I'll figure it out. But he was the
Yep.
kind of guy that like trusted people. You know, like if there was a person that would like he just gave people a lot of leash and a lot of leniency with Overwatch, and like that's kind of how he ran his business, and I think why it's successful. But you know, he gave me the chance to succeed and learn how to succeed, and that was like literally probably like the biggest break in my racing career to date. Like all of the other things for sure were, you know, just steps along the way. But you know, there's like the point where it's like, okay, you're either gonna keep doing it or you're like not. And I like wasn't sure. And that was like the point where it's like, okay, you better either figure out.
Uh-oh. Did the internet finally conk out?
I'm here.
Well,
We'll give him a second.
Kenton said you either got to figure it out or you're down.
Hi.
And then he
Are
faded
we good?
away. Oh,
We
you're
good?
back now.
You're good. You're good.
You faded out when just as you were saying you had to either figure it out or basically go do something else is kind of where you were at.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
great. So essentially, I used that as a way to continue. And like the things that, you know, I guess I learned from that were how to manage people, and then, you know, the different personalities within a program. And unfortunately, we had to let someone go almost like right away. And also, like, okay, it's 2020. Like, we're going
Yeah.
to start this program in over, you know, the winter of 1920 into COVID, and we do our first race, and then boom, like COVID hits, and it's like our first race goes okay, and you know, there's a guy that, you know, it wasn't, he was really good, but you know, we had to make a change um at that moment in time, and it was like the hardest thing to do because of like the timing. You know, it wasn't that like, you know, the COVID happened and then we had to make this change. It was like, you know, we had to make this change and then COVID happened. So like firing a person was like the hardest thing I had to do during that phase. And
Yeah.
then, you know, when that was difficult. Um,
So I'm curious. So the business stuff is interesting, but I'm kind of curious what does karting what did we lose Kenton again?
I think he
Oh.
cut out. I don't think he was taking a pause.
Oh shit, sorry Kenton, you can continue.
Were you taking a pause or
No
did you
worries.
cut out?
No, I think I must have cut out, I guess.
Okay.
But no, I was just saying how yeah, it's as far as, you know, that team side, you know, it was a great 3 years and figured out how to, you know, make a car go fast. And Danny, my wife, was a huge part of that because like you can't drive and manage a team. So she was like there, you know, registering the car for the events, ordering tires, ordering fuel, and I was essentially doing the technical stuff where it was like making sure we had enough parts on the rig, making sure we had enough brake cleaner, and like all these details. But you know, like I said, I think the biggest part of all that was the people, like learning how to work with different personalities and people um, during that phase. And you know, Eric was a huge part of that to make that program good because, as you know, Tom, like he's very detail oriented, and like understands all the processes to be able to make the car good. So like he was, yeah, huge in that aspect. If I didn't have him, we would have sucked for sure. But we did all right.
Tom, is Eric the guy that you were hitting up when you and Rockwell were trying to figure out how to get the TCR cars to not drive
I can
badly?
answer that.
Or
Yeah.
was it Kenton?
among many, but
Yes.
yeah. Among many. Yeah, Eric's amazing. He's on my list to have on this podcast too. He was a pro cyclist, so he's like an athlete himself, but he taught himself motorsports engineering to make a career out of it. Essentially, I'm glossing over a lot, but because he's got the athlete brain instead of the engineer brain, like he taught me everything I didn't learn from Andy Hollis about engineering and process and stuff like that. And I know from what Ken's saying, like, yeah, he could hold a team together by himself probably. He
Yeah.
wouldn't want to, but he probably
Nope.
could.
Yeah, I was just gonna say he would not want to. He's like, I
Yeah.
will do everything but manage a team, but he like basically manages the team and he doesn't know it.
He like
Yeah.
manages it by example.
Yep, that's exactly right. And he tells someone to do it once, and if they don't do it right the second time, he like goes off the rails. He's like, I told
Little
you
bit.
to do it this way. Why didn't you do it this way? And it's just funny, but it's out of love, but
Yeah.
it's all good.
DJ, you had a question.
Yeah, I'm curious how, because I wanted the kart as a kid too, but my dad wanted to go dirt bike riding, so that's what we did. So I'm curious what karting looks like as a kid in the States, because like I'm pretty familiar with what it looks like in Europe. It's actually like pretty
Crazy.
cutthroat. Yeah, it's crazy. But like, what does that look like in the States? You lived in California, right?
Yeah, so like California was actually like a mecca for sprint karting. And like different areas of the country have kind of different, things for karting. Like Wisconsin, for example, like that Midwest area, they did a lot of road racing with karts. But in SoCal, we did quite a lot of sprint karts on and sprint races, obviously. But as far as like what that looks like back when I was racing karts, it's different. It's weird to say, like 20 years ago.
You old.
Shit. Yeah. So like we initially started with a go-kart in the back of the bed of our truck and went out to the kart track and just pounded laps, and like through those years of karting, when I was 8 to 15, 16, we got like this little 10-footer, enclosed trailer, and that was the crap, like,
Yeah, that was fancy.
and like,
oh, did we lose Kenton again?
It's only for moments,
I'm here,
I think.
I'm here.
Yep. Okay, he's here.
There you are.
Okay.
Don't worry,
Yeah,
I'll edit all this out.
Please interrupt me if I do stop, so like I can make sure I come back. All right. So anyways, the like from 8 to 15, like, and how that kind of looked for me, it was like we did local club racing. So you had club racing, which was essentially one go-kart track had an affiliation, and they would just run a race every month, and then like the regional level would be like, as you would think, in SoCal there's more than one go-kart track, so they would race kind of up and down the west coast of California and do that. So obviously the regional level is kind of like a step up. You're starting to bring people from more parts of the state and or country to compete at a higher level, and like those races were like quite a bit more expensive. You had to the level of prep that was involved to do those races was higher, to be competitive, and like we didn't do that. Like we had one motor and used it to rebuild, and like there's like all these other guys, they would show up with like maybe more larger rigs than what we had, and they had like 5 motors, and they had like the best of the best on each motor. Like they had like the best carb from this one and like the best cylinder from this one, etc., best pipe, all these things to try to make the best of it. And like at that time, like I was, as I was getting older, like people might not know right now that are listening, I'm like 6'3", and I was growing up to be even bigger. And like as you imagine, being 6'3" in a go-kart is not exactly helpful.
It's like a
And
sale.
yep, exactly. So we it just didn't make sense for us to try to compete at a high level in karting because it was like a waste of money, and we also did not have the money to compete at that level. So we just did the local club level, and then like literally had no like I had no idea I would even make it in motorsports. Never did I even think of it as a possible avenue to be like a way of making a living. Like no way. Like I was 16 years old. Nah, no chance. Like that's not even like a thought on my brain. I'm like, I'm going to college. I'm gonna try to be an engineer, and then I'm too dumb. So I like decided to try to do business because I got to Calc 2 and was like, I can't do multiple derivatives. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, you're like trajectories. What is this?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all right. So at like 15, 16 years old, you guys weren't like sinking the resources in the karting. Like, did you have any indication that you were good at this, or were you good at that, or like?
No, because I was 6'3", 200 pounds in a go-kart. Like there was no chance that I like would be competitive at a regional level because like I was just physically encumbered. So like I didn't know if I was actually good. The only
Huh.
time that I actually figured out that I was actually good was when I got into a car, and like that was when like the limitations were much less because the car is bigger than a go-kart.
Now, at this point, do you think, like, were you really competitive? Like, did you hate losing, or like how competitive was Kenton at like 15 and 16?
I mean, I was like I was competitive for sure. Um but like I don't know, like maybe I wasn't as like cutthroat. Like I don't exactly remember because yeah, I don't know. Like that's like that's a great question. Like yeah, I was competitive.
Because
But
I'm
again, like
wondering.
I wasn't thinking this was gonna be a like I didn't think this was gonna be a way of living. Like I just was doing it, like as a
Yeah.
hobby, you know?
I'm wondering if like just the disadvantages you had while karting, like, and mixed with like your competitiveness, if that was almost like training weights to
Oh, for sure.
where like all the little details and intricacies mattered so much more because you, in order to have any remote of success in your own brand, because you were
Yeah.
super competitive, all those things mattered so much more, so you would put more
Yeah.
attention and effort into those things.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. Like as far as I like doing karting, I wasn't like giving up, like I wanted to win. Like I wanted to like be good. So like I was doing everything that I could to like be competitive, and like we won races at the club level. Like I won a few championships and like did well. um but it's different at the club level than it is at like the regional level. Like if you win at the club level, like you're like, yeah, good, but if you win at like the regional level and national level, like you're doing something. But like I couldn't compete at that level, so I was like, I'm just good at the club level, I guess, and
Hmm.
whatever. So that's kind of that's where I was at, but I wanted to do good. The only time that I like really killed it was like when it rained, because like when it rained, like when I was tall, like that was a huge advantage. I
Kenton's
had
head's
so
above
much
the
side
spray.
grip. Oh baby. Oh, not even. Yeah, I didn't even think
Just like
about
a
that. Yeah.
periscope, just like out of the
Yeah.
spray.
Freaking submarine, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. No, it was just like the side grip I had. Like I had so much weight up top that I could put like I had so much more grip than everyone else. Oh yeah, leaning
Throw your
around.
body weight around. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
you got the first time you drove cars was at Skip Barber?
Yes. Yeah, yeah. The first I didn't even have my driver's license. So and that's where this is the story that I was gonna talk about, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead,
Go
please.
for it.
That's why you're here.
But so when I was coming through school, I played instruments. So I when you're fourth grade, right, you choose what you want to play, and I chose to play cello. And then when I got into high school, I switched to stand-up bass, and then I kind of started playing electric bass a little bit and whatnot. And then there was like a camps in summer, right? That you would do, and so I decided to do this like camp that was like 2 weeks long, and I had only ever done summer camps that are like a week long, right? And so there's this band camp, orchestra camp, that's 2 weeks long, and it just happens to also fall on the same week that is the Monterey Historics. And my parents are going up to the Monterey Historics while I'm up at summer camp. And again, me not like really caring about cars so much, I was like, I'll play my bass. That's fine. I'll go up there, and like about 5 days in, which was 5 days in would be on like a Thursday, and I was like, yeah, this is not for me.
You were like full in, and then just nah.
I do not. It was just I still loved playing the instrument, but like the camp, like itself, I was
Yeah.
like, this is not where I want to be right now. Like I have to do this another 10 days. Like no freaking way. So I call home sick, and like my mom is like literally on the way up to Monterey. Like she drives 2 hours back because she was on her way.
Oh
She
no.
drives 2 hours back and she comes and gets me from band camp, and she was like, "You're coming with me in the morning to Monterey," and I was like, "I don't feel good. I don't want to go. That's like a long
She
drive.
totally
Like,
saw through
Oh,
all
she
this.
knew.
Yeah.
She
I
knew.
don't." So she freaking knew. And I like at that time I like threw temper tantrums. Like I was not a good like kid. Like
That's wild to picture.
yeah, so like when I was like not in a good mood, like it was not a good time. Um and so I like barricaded my door. I was like, they can't get in. So I like put my snowboard like up against the door to try to keep the door from opening in the morning. Either the door gets opened, whatever, and by the morning I was cooled off, and I'm like, all right, let's go. This will be cool. Like, fine. So we go up to the race. It was amazing. It was so fun. Like, I'm so glad I did it, and I'm like totally sounding like a spoiled like brat at this point because my parents are so amazing that they like decided to drive back home and
Oh.
bring me to this thing, and I was like,
No.
I don't want to go to this Monterey Historics, this super cool thing. Like, it's like, frick, that's awesome. Like, I should want to go, but like at that time, like it was just that wasn't where my brain was at. Um, and so, anyways, we get there, and the event goes, and as we're leaving, the Skip Barber has a tent, there basically, and my dad goes into the restroom. If you've been to Laguna Seca, there's this center building, and that was Skip Barber's. That was their building. Like that's where they were based. Was right there at Laguna. And my dad goes into the restroom. Dude takes forever, and I'm sitting on the front steps looking at the Skip Barber cars, and Randy Buck's over there. If anyone knows who Randy Bucks is, he's like one of the OG Skip Barber guys. Uh, and I like walk over to the cars. They have their Formula car and the MX-5. I was like 14 at the time, and I was like, man, this looks really cool. I like sat in the MX-5, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I like fit, like this is great. And I sit in the Formula car. I'm like, this is a little tight. And but they were like doing like 3-day racing schools, and from that point on, like it was like I guess they were giving some like 50% off, like crazy discount at the end of the event. And my dad walks over after coming out of the restroom. My mom and I are fiddling with the cars, and Randy starts talking to my dad and talks about how I'm karting, blah blah blah, and he's like, oh, we can do this thing. We walk away with a 3-day racing school. So I owe it to my mom knocking down the door, picking me up from band camp, to dragging me up to Monterey, to me starting my racing car career. So was that point.
That is kind of wild. Like all those
Well,
things kind of had to line up.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say you left out the long bathroom journey. You have to thank your dad too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And whatever he ate the day before.
that's the standard.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah, thanks.
It's It's like your dad. You have to thank whatever soy your dad ate because obviously it did not get along well.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of interesting though that I've never really put this together, but I would say from the outside looking in, it seems like your career has a special like asterisk to it, or you have a special skill set in that you have done enough of the prototype stuff that you followed that path that now you are in a much smaller pool of go-to prototype style people. Like obviously the like the P1 guys or the Radical Cup guys and this type of stuff. Even though you say like I didn't really click until I got in a car,
Mhm.
the fact that you still chased, is that true at all, or have you ever thought about that, or no?
No, I mean, like I guess like I really, I mean, I when I did the Skippy series, it was originally the Formula Car series, and then I switched to the MX5 series the next year after winning a different scholarship to the MX5s, and then
Mhm.
I went from MX5 Cup to like IMSA Lights, and like at that time, MX5 Cup, they gave 200 grand to move up to the next step. And like literally everyone that came from MX5 Cup went to Continental Tire ST Racing. Like they went to Continental Tire. Like that was the series that they went to, which is essentially the TCR of today's IMSA Pilot Challenge back then.
Yeah.
So if you won MX5 Cup, that's what you did. You went to Freedom Autosports MX5 team. That's what you did. And at that time, I was like, everyone that's done that has done like they've gotten to a point, and then from there, like they either make it or they fall off the face of the planet. And most guys didn't continue after that next year. So I was like, I want to do something different. And no one, like we asked then Mazda, was like, hey, the IMSA Lights series has a Mazda engine in it, and it costs about the same to go run. Can we do that? And they were like, I don't see why not. So I went from Miatas to like this crazy high downforce prototype, uh, and I was actually shocked at how easy it was to transition. It was like so much faster, but the amount of grip was so high that it was so confidence inspiring. So like I guess I didn't know I was going to be into prototypes until I got to that point, and then yeah, I went to LMPC. Yeah, there you go. That was my favorite car ever. That picture that you posted there. Um, but
It's a good car.
oh, it was amazing. It was so fun, and like it was ran by JDC. You could see Gumby on the roll bar of that picture.
Very
I
aerodynamic.
Yeah, what is that about?
that's a,
Oh, it's you.
okay.
It's you. Is it
Yes,
you?
that's me.
Oh,
That's
I
you're a
get
me.
it.
Gumby?
Did
Because
you
you're
actually
Gumby.
not
Yeah.
know that was me?
Well, no, I know
Well, I
that's
know
you
that's
in
a
the
photo of you
car.
driving
Oh
the car,
yeah.
but
No,
Gumby
Gumby.
is
Gumby
like
is not
your.
me. No, like Glendora. So that was another thing. It's less interesting, but Glendora, my hometown, is like the home of Gumby and where they had their studios.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, and like during MX5 Cup, Dean Case is a guy who worked at Mazda that was kind of integral in my career, like media training type stuff.
Yeah.
And he was like big into helping me try to find like media opportunities. So he's like, okay, your hometown is Glendora. Gumby is your hometown hero basically, and they're doing an event in the downtown this year for the first time ever. You should try to support that. So that's what we did in MX5 Cup. We basically did a little promo thing, uh, put a sticker on the side of the car. I drove a wrapped MX5 up to Laguna Seca, and Gumby rode with me, like Gumby that figurine rode on the roll bar in the MX5 Cup car, and then from there we had a Gumby costume like on the podium at MX5 Cup. We won a race there and had like one of the crew guys in
I
a
didn't
Gumby
know this.
costume, and I had a Gumby stick. Look, you can find a photo, like Google Kenton Koch MX5 Cup Gumby, and you will see pictures of this. You should, I hope. I'm pretty certain. But anyways, so there was that
Tom's laughing.
deal.
It has to exist.
Yep,
Oh
there
my
it is.
Guys,
Told you.
Google that. My favorite part, there was no correlation. It's not a height joke at all. There's no correlation because you guys are the same height and the same color in this photo.
Yeah, yeah. But you can see where his face is at. like like the
Yeah,
person
it's true.
inside the
Yeah.
costume is his mouth, you know.
Yeah, you wouldn't fit. That's true.
No, I would
That-
not fit in that costume. But yeah,
that's
so that's
amazing. That's a great story.
Gumby. So that's what we did there, and
Do,
that's why we had
So
Gumby.
do you still race with
yeah,
a Gumby
that's
on the roll bar?
I don't. I started having bad luck, so I took Gumby out of the car.
Gumby
Gumby got
got
fired.
kicked, yeah.
Gumby's the problem. It's not me.
It's
It's
nothing
Gumby.
else. It's obviously this Gumby figurine.
Yep. I still have the Gumby though. It's in my. I'm pointing at it right now. It's on my little trophy shelf, hanging onto one of the trophies.
That's awesome.
Yep.
So I remember the first time I was aware of you was when you were on the cover of Sports Car, which I think was when you won the MX5 championship, right? And got the scholarship.
Yeah.
And I read that article because it was 2014.
Yes.
Thir-
Yeah. It was end of 2014.
Okay, so that year was the year that I did my leap from autocross to club racing, and I did my whole like I want to get my license and I want to do these 5 races and this like
That's a row,
I had
yeah.
my whole thing. No, I had no plan for pro racing yet until the end of that year. Your cover came out and I read the whole article, and you were saying some like business and marketing and things about racing that I had never even thought of before that led me to making some decisions about where I put myself
No
for pro
way.
racing.
What?
Yeah, because when
I gotta
you
read
like
this
the one
article.
that sticks with me, the one that sticks with me is when you said always go find the PA announcer and try to get on the PA. Because I was like, that's so smart. And I've like literally from day one when I got into or Pirelli World Challenge, it was like, and Kim, when can I go on the PA? Is there a session I can come co-announce? You know? And
That's so cool.
yeah, so then that like you said, that was 2014. That sort of thought process is what led me to doing B spec instead of like spec Miata, because I knew I could get to like a higher platform quicker, even though it's a dumber car. So then it was like this weird symbiotic thing when we ended up getting paired together a couple years later, which was like a massive downgrade from you because you had just run the Rolex 24-hour, and you get paired with a kid who's never raced in IMSA before in a TCR car, which is like the opposite end of the spectrum. But I've shared stories quickly on this podcast, or in more detail, I'll recap them quickly, of how intimidated I was coming in that first weekend. I lied. I wasn't intimidated till I got there, and I watched how the team ran and how you carried yourself and how many people everybody knew, and specifically the way you and Eric worked together, because you already had that repertoire and Eric's the engineer.
Yeah.
That first day, I don't know if you remember any of this or how bad it was from the from the outside, but I was in my head so bad.
It was also a crappy day because it was like raining in practice 1. Remember? And
No, I
like
don't remember that. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
No, I remember practice 1 was wet on a rain tire, and you jump in and it's like literally your first foray into a TCR car. Both of our first forays in a front wheel in a TCR car. Obviously you had a lot of front wheel drive experience at that point, but like it was on a rain tire on a drying track, and I like noticed that you were really like intimidated initially by the car in a way, because it was like a rain tire, and like the car has like over 300 horsepower, and like as you imagine a tire that's being cooked like on a drying track, like when you touch the throttle it does not go in the direction you want it to go. And
This
then you
is
got on a
crazy.
rain.
I have no recollection of this at
Oh, I
all.
remember.
That's wild.
Yeah, and then you jumped on a slick tire and like we're freaking flying. So, this guy,
Wild.
I don't know if people know this. I'm sure people do, but as everyone knows, Tom O'Gorman is a very fast human being. And I could not hold a candle to this guy in that car at all. Like when it came to qualifying pace, he would smoke me. Like if I
Tom's
could be
superhuman in
within a
that
few
regard.
tenths, like in
Pause.
We lost
And
Kenton.
wait, you'll be
Pause.
back soon.
Okay.
Yep, there you are.
I
Okay.
like thought about what I was saying and realized I was making myself look like an idiot, so I stopped talking.
That's all.
No, I'm joking. So it was just great. It was a very humbling experience for me too, because up until that point I had won everything from MX5 Cup through 24. I'm like, I'm hot shit, and then I'm like getting smoked by Tom in this TCR car and on qualifying pace, and I was like, holy crap, like
He's
I really
wildly
have to go to
overselling
work.
this. He's wildly overselling this. But the main thing that I take away still from that whole experience, and you said you had a story from sometime in this, but
Yep, of course. There is a
my
story.
I can't wait to
my
hear the
biggest
story.
takeaway is that I don't know if you ever remember telling me this, but you told me it was probably after our first win, which ironically was VIR, and we were obviously like riding high on life and everything was great, and you're like, just so you like, this is my first time in IMSA, third year pro racing, and you're like, just so you know, it's not always like this. And
Yes.
do you remember telling me this? It's not
Oh
always
yeah.
like this, and like I'm cherishing this, and I'm recommending you do too, because the chances of a motivated team with motivated crew and a knowledgeable and motivated engineer and two drivers that can both get the job done equally is almost never happening ever. So the fact, like, just cherish this, and I remember that, and that's why I still feel like joy at every pro race,
Mhm.
because that's so true
Yeah.
at every race really in general. But
No, you're 100%. I remember that vividly, because I was told that a couple years earlier in my career. Like, because everything was going great, everything was going good. Won 4 championships in a row, won the championship IMSA Lights. You know, like, and at that point, his name's Steven Simpson, um, and
good old
he's
Steven.
who I co-drove with in LMPC, but very high on wisdom. This guy, like, lots of good things to say, and he told me that. He told me just that, and then like a couple years go by, and like things start to suck, and like you gotta like remember those times. So when we were in that moment, I was like, Tom, don't forget that.
Yeah.
But anyways, the story that I was gonna say at VIR, I don't know if everyone knows this. I'm sure I've tried to make it known, but that race at VIR, uh, Tom starts. It's kind of raining off and on, and it gets a little bit wet in turn 4, and he like
Wait, no,
fires. You just came out of pit lane, right? You just
yeah.
came
So
out. Let
I
me
got
tell
the
it.
penalty.
Freaking
I
let
got
me
the
tell it.
penalty.
Oh,
I
that's
know.
right. You
Yeah.
got a
Go ahead,
penalty.
buddy. You got then now you go.
What was the penalty for again? I forgot.
Hanging too far back from the GS field at the start.
Oh, that was dumb. That was dumb. I didn't even remember that happened. But anyways,
You
you
guys are
got
still
a
mad about
penalty.
it.
It started raining a little bit, and he goes into turn 4, absolutely fires it into the tire barrier, and like is like under the tires, and he comes on the radio, and he's like, "Guys, I'm so sorry." And Eric, the engineer, is like, "Back it up, like put it in reverse." Like,
Yeah, he goes,
what?
"Is the car running?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I've never crashed before. I'm sorry. I'm sorry."
And
Tom.
he backs it up, and we like continue on, and we charge through the field again with like the right front fender like hang. You're looking for a picture of this car like destroyed, huh? It wasn't destroyed really, to be honest. It was like the right front bumper, I think, or the bumper was like a little askew, but the splitter was intact. So like we were good. And yeah, so we won the race. But like that was like a I will never forget that. I'm so sorry.
I had
Back
never,
it
I had,
up.
I had never gone off and hit anything before ever, and I thought like I just threw everything away. And honestly, now in hindsight, when I watch those races back, which I still do to like give yourself that little high, like I don't know, I thought I was a pretty good like under control. You knew what you were going to get from me kind of driver, but I was a little bit of a wild card that year.
You were wild.
Like,
Oh yeah.
You were
but I
wild.
didn't know that.
No,
I didn't
like
know
I
that.
knew you were wild because like just like the level of commitment that you had like on the quali laps, like just how you could predict where the front was going to go when you got to power, like to within an inch of the edge of the track. Like that's where I didn't have that control. And like when you did it, like it was like you had that, you were like always right on the limit with the front tires and combined load with the power. So like your exits were just like always so good. But it was like on the limit. And like when I would watch your laps, I was like, whoa, yeah, and but it was like controlled, like you felt under control, and like it's different when people watch versus like when you're doing it, because like when you're doing it, you feel like you're under control.
Totally.
Um, but like I saw it and I was like, whoa, that's on the limit for me. Like, But once we got to like the race and like the goodness was gone of the tire, I was like, okay, I can do this. I can hang on to Tom Now's pace. Like we were good on the race pace, but man, the quality pace was unbelievable.
I think that
So,
always happens though. Like I'll watch videos of myself driving and be like, ooh, I'm not. Can I even do that anymore? Like you'll watch yourself do
of
something.
course.
Yeah, like Kenton, you literally just won at VAR. If you watch that video 6 months from now, you'd be like, man, that guy's kind of crazy. You know what I mean? Like, but
Like I was killing it.
yeah, but when you're in the moment and you're like dialed in and you're driving well, like it kind of just feels like you can get away with anything that you want.
No, I get it. I get it. No, for sure. Like there's things that you do that you don't realize you do, but you just do it.
Yeah,
Um,
because you're so in the
and
zone.
yeah, which I think, I was talking with someone about this earlier, and it kind of, I guess, switching to grassroots side, like, Tom, yourself, and I, like, the speed, I guess, comes relatively easy for us. But like others, it doesn't come easy. And it's like that amount of like bandwidth that is taken up for people that speed comes easy. We have quite a bit of bandwidth extra for other things. Like for how you progress through a stint, how you have craft for just the racecraft, and just the things that involve going into a stint, whether it be fuel saving, tire management, etc.
Yeah.
And uh, for guys that the speed doesn't come up easy, like that part is like taken, like the bandwidth is consuming so much of like the go fast bit that when you actually then go into like putting someone around that human, it that can easily exceed some bandwidth. And the reason I brought it up, I was like literally on another podcast like just today, and I don't even know why I had 2 podcasts scheduled in one day, because I've literally never had a podcast
Dang.
ever, and it was before VIR even. Like it wasn't
Both
like
of them?
because of VIR. Um,
The
but anyways,
the
it was
other one too,
blind
Kenton?
Apex. What?
The other one was scheduled before you won at VAR as well?
Yes, yes.
That's wild.
I'm like,
Dude, but
the
I
only like we need to schedule more podcasts the day after races.
Yeah.
We need to do
When I
this.
texted you, I was gonna be like, did you have like ESPN interviews or something today, or can you still be on? Or
No, man. Kidding me? No, no one cares about it. Yes, thank you for posting that picture.
I'm sorry,
Guys,
it
I'm
took a while to
so
find
sorry.
No, you found it. It's all good.
Tom, I could just feel your sadness coming out of that car right now.
it. It wasn't as calm as what he's describing either. It was frantic. I think Eric said I was on the radio apologizing before I hit the wall.
Yeah. I mean, your
Like,
tears are literally hitting the camera right now. Like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
There's
Really.
raindrops on
Yeah,
the lens.
sadness.
No. I was just wanted to. I guess I don't know why that brought me up to one of the talking points you said earlier, like about kind of grassroots type stuff. So I figured I'd kind of dive into that a little bit, but that was kind of my shtick there, I guess. You said,
So,
best piece of advice for grassroots drivers about.
well, no, I hang on a sec. I want to touch on that more, because something we talk about a lot on this podcast, or visit a lot, is the theory of talent versus effort. And DJ has like a very strong conviction. I think we've all probably even talked about this before, but what you just shared is like, this has always come pretty naturally to you, which is my perception of your driving too. Like you just have a natural ability of driving that 90% of people don't have.
Yeah, but my theory is
especially in your
that,
coaching, like what's your
ooh, yeah, the coaching.
DJ finish off? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so my theory is that people who think that it's like, okay, well, I've always been kind of this good or whatever, they don't remember a time where they were like putting in the work, the effort to figure out this driving stuff, because they were doing it when they were a kid. And when you're a kid, nothing feels like effort. It's just the thing that you're doing because you're a kid and you have unlimited free time. So the debate is it talent or effort? Is like which one of those makes the fast driver? And I'm under the firm belief that like there are certain aptitudes that can help people along the process, like whether it's like risk taking or naturally pushing the limits, whatever it is. but I'm under the impression that it's basically all effort, and driving a car has very little to do with talent.
Well, I'm in the. I think it's a combination. And the reason that I say that is because there's Tom. You kind of touched on the coaching side a little bit. I'll get to that. That side was effort to try to make myself a good coach because I wasn't initially a good coach. But the reason that I like got to, I think, being a good coach was because I had to teach myself how to drive essentially. And because I didn't have a coach, so along the way I was always inundated with wanting to figure out the setup stuff and like the way the dynamic of the car worked, and also the just how to analyze myself to be better, because you have to try to maximize everything, right? So that's what I was like solely focused on when I was younger in cars, trying to make myself better as a driver, because like I felt like I was good, but I think I felt like that was probably more natural, I would say. And that I think comes from karting as a kid, and I think that just comes from like experience as a young kid, uh, just kind of building that muscle memory and that feeling of what it all was. I mean, I was sliding power wheels around when I was like 4. So like when it comes to like just natural instinct, I think that's something that comes naturally, and I think it is kind of a thing that if you have it, you have it. But if you don't have it, it's not necessarily that you can't have it, uh, but you have to work a lot harder to get there, because you didn't do it from when you were, a kid in diapers. Like I feel like if you started younger, you would have a much better chance at being properly good um, later in life versus if you start now, because it's going to take time. But there's also I've seen different people at different phases of their life start racing, and there are some people that are just more natural than others, and I couldn't tell you why. Uh, and it's just when you look at and DJ, you've seen this many times for your coaching and whatnot. Like when you watch someone drive right away, if they like kind of have it or not, or if they're gonna have to figure it out. And the people that have to figure it out, it takes some energy. But there's definitely a natural person who has a feeling, and there's always the person who's natural that has more brains, or more guts than brains. Like there's this balance of stuff that definitely happens. But um I really do think though you have to kind of have it, and like I feel like I'm putting air quotes around, is like that natural feeling, and if you don't have it, it's hard to teach it, but you can do it. Like I've seen people do it, like Brian Putt, like the guy that I was coaching. Like when I first saw him drive, I was like, oh my god, like
Oh no, is he gonna listen to this?
like here we go. Like he doesn't have any confidence in this car whatsoever. So the combination of like giving someone a car that's confidence inspiring, and then allowing them to then utilize that car that is confidence inspiring to learn stuff that doesn't punish them, I think is like really important to someone's development. Is to be able to get in a car that allows you to experiment with stuff, and get that feeling of like, oh, this is what it's like to do something right, and not be like, killed for doing something incorrectly because the car wants to kill you. Like until you build that confidence, like you're never going to be able to push, but you have to have confidence to be able to push. You can't just tell someone to brake at the 2 board. If they don't have the confidence to do it, they're just never going to do it. The fight or flight instinct in someone's
Yep.
body is going to always prevent them from doing that. And there's nothing that you can do to change it until you give them the confidence to do that. And that's sometimes built up over a longer period of time than others.
That might be the most succinct way that has ever been described. Like basically, because some people will have the confidence without like thinking of the possibility of what could go wrong. And there's probably like a certain balance of knowing what could go wrong and having the confidence to do it anyways. That there's like if it's all confidence and knowing what's going wrong, then you're just wrecking cars. You probably won't last
You're
very long.
crashing. Yeah.
Right.
You're wrecking.
Yeah.
But then if
Yeah.
if there's not enough confidence and too much worrying about what could go wrong, then you're not exploring the limits
You're
to
just slow.
add into the
Yeah.
repertoire of understanding what you can get away with, what you can't, right? So yeah, that's like a personality trait that could lead to like faster development, right?
Correct.
Yeah. That's really I like the way you put that too, because I've developed a theory over the last couple of years of actually coaching for my job. That's like some people just need to crash, or some people just need to have like a big spin, or whatever that thing is that they're scared of to happen. But you're right, it's not that they need to have it to happen so that they stop thinking about it. They need to have it to happen because that's part of their exploration. And unfortunately that happens. But I've started trying to coach people into like small exploration, which is like just go brake at the two and don't even try to turn in. Just keep going straight until you feel comfortable again. But go brake at the two for like you have to break your muscle memory.
Yeah.
Instead of like go brake at the two and then still try to make the corner and then they crash, you know.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, I think
break the rhythm.
yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's like you have to perfect the fundamentals, and if you perfect the fundamentals, then you should be fast, and it shouldn't be crazy. You should at least be 95 to 90% the way there if you just are executing the fundamentals, and those are hard to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not easy. But having some level of car control is how you build that confidence, though, to like fire it in there and catch the car when you go offline, when you
Yeah.
overdrive the corner. And if you don't have that car control, you will either have too big of brains, too much guts for how much car control you have, and you will crash, or you will know that you don't have the car control and you'll just be terrified and never push. So like I feel like car control is probably like the single most important thing when learning how to make a car go fast, is to be able to explore the limits and be able to catch it while doing so makes you confident.
Now, what like if you had to boil down like the root cause of what car control is, because this comes up a lot, but like what makes somebody good at car control? Have you ever tried to think about that? Like what like root
Big wheels
causes?
at 4 years old.
What is that? Big wheels?
I said big wheels at 4 years old. I'm kidding.
Hey,
That's a really good.
I rode big wheels at 4 years old too, and if you got going pretty quick, you could get the rear end to slide out. It was a good time.
Oh, 1000%. Yeah, we
Yeah.
had a driveway
too.
slightly
Wait, did we all have
downhill.
big
I
wheels?
slid that sucker right into the freaking
Is that literally the secret? Did we
garage
unlock
door.
it? Did we unlock the secret? Big wheels?
Big wheels.
All
Yep.
right, guys, the next time we're coaching somebody and it seems like they don't have any car control, just for science, we need to ask if they played with big wheels as a kid.
Yep.
Right.
We'll keep a shared Excel sheet. We'll keep track of this data just so we can have some kind of some scientific
But
analysis.
I don't know how to answer that question, DJ. Like what makes someone have good car control? Was that kind of what you're asking?
Well, I mean, good car control is just the ability to like anticipate how the car's going to react and like the inputs needed to solve whatever the car's doing, right? But like having a
Right.
feel for the car. So like what are the people who don't seem like they have a feel for the car? Like what is the thing that they're doing wrong? I could have some theories, but I don't actually know. I was just kind of wondering if like in your experience of coaching, like what are those things?
Those things are it. That's like my air quotes it. The
Nice.
car control is it. But how you learn car control has to be then taught, and you have to put yourself like literally in scenarios where you're learning that.
Yeah.
Whether that be in like skid pad school, drift school, anything that
Snow,
puts you
wet.
sideways.
Yeah.
Like you literally have to be sideways to be comfortable with that. That's the only
Yeah.
way you're gonna get car control. If you like never lived that, then you're just never gonna have it if you don't have the natural air quotes it. You have to learn that.
Go ahead, Tom.
I think my answer to that question, I think real like gut reaction is a combination of understanding the exact point. Nope. 10% on either side of where the actual breaking point of the tire's grip is, so that you can anticipate when you're coming up to it, and understanding weight so that you can understand how much the momentum behind weight will influence what you're actually trying to do.
Yeah.
And people who lack both are scary. People who lack one or the other struggle. And when you find the line
Yep.
to anticipate the limit and also understand the weight moving around you and how that correlates to the limit at the ground, those two things are the root to me of car control.
But they're not thinking of those things, right? Like somebody who's like a natural at car control, like
No,
they're just
But you have an innate understanding of those two things. Like I can tell you when I'm in a Camaro versus a Miata, how much that weight is going to be a factor in what the car does when I request an input at the 2 or 3 things I can do: gas, brake, turn. But then if I don't have a clear understanding of, like if you draw a line in the sand, this is too much traction, and you give it like 5% on either end, like you don't need to be perfect, but you need to understand where that little window is. But am I saying that okay?
Yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying. I like the thing that I see when I'm coaching somebody and it just seems like they're like they just have lacking car control or just very sluggish car control or anything like that, is it comes down like the fundamentals of like where are their eyes, and also what is their grip
Eyeballs.
like on the wheel. If they're all tense on the wheel, like if they're like pulling it toward them, or they got like little fist balls on the wheel, then in my experience, that's when their car control tends to kind of suck, because they're eliminating the
They're so
information.
tense.
Yeah, they're eliminating the information that Tom's talking about. Like if you're relaxed enough, not completely relaxed, but at least enough in the car, and the car will communicate to you when you're getting close to the limit, this 5-10%, like to the line that we're calling the limit. If you're super tense in the car, or like you have some like panic in your head, or like, and the panic could be caused from like, oh, hopefully the car doesn't step out here, or what if it steps out? You like have all these what ifs like flaring up in your head, instead of just like being 100% present and in the moment and being like receptive to the communication that's coming through the car. If you don't have those things going on, I think those are the people that have the bad car control. And I think that's like part of a personality thing. So that, to me, that's why it can seem like it's an it, like they have it. But I think you can teach people to build good habits with the wheel. You can teach people to understand their own emotions, where if they're too much inside their own head and they're thinking about like go try to swing a golf club and completely think about everything you're doing as you like swing and hit the ball. You will not hit that ball.
Chance.
Yeah, you will not hit the ball.
You just be natural about it.
So
like you have to be out it. You just have to go do it. Like you have to just go do it to feel it, because the second you tell someone to go do something, they're going to be slower doing it. Just like you said with hitting a golf ball in a golf club, like if you're thinking about it, you're going to suck at doing it until you like kind of figure out what your body's doing. Like same thing with instructing someone. You might tell them to go do something X way, but until they feel it for themselves, then they won't actually execute it until you explain it in a way that's easy for them to for it to be receptive for that human to go out and execute. And which is why it should always be simple. Like you've got to keep it simple whenever you're giving feedback, and it needs to be connected with your eyes, your hands, like everything's interconnected. And like you can read all these books about how to drive, and like it does help with understanding, but you still have to go out and do it to be able to feel it. And like we're talking about these minute, like, oh, you got to feel like the 5% over and under and anticipating. Like yes, like once you figure out how to be butt naked sideways, then you can figure out how to be like less butt naked sideways. So but you've got to get over the limit to be able to be comfortable over the limit, so that you can be at the limit. So you got to get comfortable over it to be under it. But that takes time. Some people is natural and they figure that part out real quick. Some people it takes a little bit longer and they've got to work harder at it, but it's possible for those people to do it. So I do agree, DJ, that there's effort and then there's natural ability, and it's different for each human. But there's people that are natural and there's people that it needs to be taught, but those people need to have more patience. because it won't come naturally, and they have to hopefully not get frustrated in the process of it being hard. Like it's gonna be hard. But
Even for the people that originally comes natural, at some point you're going to run across a
Yeah.
point where like it's hard. Like the critical thinking needs
Yep.
to come in. Like you thought you were putting a lot of effort into this. Like, sorry, the guy that just beat you was putting in way more effort than you. Like,
Yeah.
or less.
Or less sometimes, yeah.
And that would be even more frustrating. Like that guy
Yeah.
just showed up and just smoked me, and I've spent every day on the sim for the last freaking week, and that guy still smoked me. I don't
who
get
smoked
it.
you?
You know, like I don't know.
Just
I
this
was
theoretical
just
figure.
yeah,
Okay.
some guy.
I thought that
Some guy
sounded
was
weird. Somebody just like completely annihilating Kenton. I was like, whoa, who is this person?
Yeah, I mean it
Right.
happens. You gotta learn somehow.
Yep.
But no, I like so the something that has made me a better coach, I thought, was honestly learning how to get my freaking pilot's license, because I learned so much about how to like understand bandwidth limitations from that, because learning something completely new was really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like we're sitting next to each other, and the instructor's there, and like I'm like 5 hours in, and he's just yapping at me. You know, like he's like, do this, do that, do this, do that, do this. I'm like, it's going in one ear, out the other. I'm like, dude, just shut up. I'm trying not to die right now. Like what you were telling me is not helping. Like tell me what to anticipate and then shut up so I can think about that, you know, like, and then do it. Like, and I learned like so much about how like I would not want to be talked to, you know,
Yeah.
and like how like I experienced solely what being fully bandwidth limited was like. And like
Right.
I was like, oh my God, I can relate so much now, like literally so much. Um, and like that was like as I was progressing through that, bandwidth is increasing, and like I'm getting used to things more, and like understanding like what that means for someone to go through that phase of like learning something completely fresh, like. And
Well,
I was like, frick, this is hard. Like I totally get it now. Like when people are like, shut up, I'm like, okay, I get it. Like I
Yeah.
understand where you're at. Like I get it. I get it. So it was interesting to kind of go through that phase.
I so I recently picked the trumpet back up, Kenton, because I played in high school, but then I just like went on like a 10-year hiatus and didn't play it. And I joined like a community band, and like I put for the last decade like everything into racing, like 24/7, just like that's all I thought about. So then when I started playing the trumpet and I was playing with all these people in the community band, they were all way better than me. So all of a sudden, I was the one in the room that like sucked at this thing, and it was a completely different experience, and that gave me a lot of insight for people that are just like starting their motorsports journey, and like what that feels like to like it'd be a difficult passage coming up, and I would like feel myself like tense up, and I would play it poorly because I was like so tense, and it kind of like gave me more insight into not just like the fundamentals of driving, but the fundamentals of performing at anything, which was like a focused mind, but a relaxed body, and how what that actually like turned into in terms of like performing at like literally anything you're doing. And to that bandwidth uh, point, like feeling bandwidth limited in a way where you notice the other people around you just being able to take in way more information than you, and you just realize like you have to just build up all these like minute habits and these little details that's going to just take hours and hours and hours of practice and like critical thinking and like visualizing and all these same things that worked for driving,
Yeah,
like to get better at
that's
something else.
intimidating.
Yeah.
Like that's intimidating. Yeah.
That was almost the perfect segue. We had a bunch of listener questions, and almost all of them are about flying. But I feel like we should just knock out the two that are about racing first, and then we can end on flying because DJ has to coach
Roger.
eventually.
I have
Okay,
to
the
coach
first one was
in
from
33 minutes, so we can go 33 more minutes.
Okay, we'll try to keep it to the hour and a half as best we can. But the racing related one was from Adam, who asked what your pre-race ritual is. Do you have one?
My pre-race ritual has changed because when I was younger, I was a very nervous child. When I would get into karting, the practice was fine, qualifying's fine, and then the second we would get to the race, I would like just turn into a nervous nightmare, and I would like not eat anything all day in anticipation of the like nervousness in my stomach that would then create, what nerves can create. And but you have to drink something, right? And so I was drinking stuff, and this one time I decided that red Gatorade was like a great idea.
Oh
Um,
no.
and I was like 9 or 10 years old, and just pounded like this like thing of red Gatorade, not like the little ones that we see right now, but like like it was a Powerade, red like Powerade, like the longer, skinnier bottles,
Like a
with
football.
the twist top, like yeah, like
Yeah.
proper. So I downed this thing and like had not eaten anything all day, and the race is coming up, and I'm like getting nervous. I'm like, oh my god, and I get into the go-kart, and I was always like one that would get my helmet on really early, get suited really early just to try to like calm myself. And I like we're like on like pre-grid. The grid in front of us is about to go. And I'm like sitting in pre-grid. The next guys go out, and we're about to drive up, and I get out of my car. Like I'm about to lose it, like blow
Oh
chunks.
no.
Oh no.
And I get out, take my helmet off, and then absolutely like proceed to puke my guts out
And it's all
on the
red.
side. It's all red.
You look
and
like
it
an
was like from
exorcism is
last
going
night.
on.
Yeah, and it was like last night's dinner, and like I'm surrounded by like 8-year-olds, and they're all like,
Ew.
like this red like guts, like literally like chunks from last night, red Gatorade, like and like that was like almost my pre-race ritual, if I'm honest. Like I almost puked like every time for like a year and a half, like before a race. But I would do it before I would get to grid. Like I had so many nerves, and like the nerves would still come up every once in a while. And like I was able to deal with it eventually, but and now I'm like not nervous like at all. But I think the nerves come from like the unknown, and like I was always so nervous of the unknown that I would like literally puke. And whenever I did something new, like in cars, like my first IMSA Lights race, for example, like that morning I puked. Like we had done
Wow.
a test day, and practice, and like it was something totally new to me coming from MX5 Cup uh to IMSA Lights. I was like so nervous. I was like, am I gonna suck? Am I gonna do good? I don't know. If I don't win, my career's over. Like, what's going on? Like, and I just went and puked. And I had so much experience puking that I was a very clean human when it came to that. I was very direct. I always knew where the nearest trash can was. Like, we were good. So my pre-race ritual has changed since then.
Nice.
Thank God.
Congrats. Yeah,
Yes,
congrats.
thank God. But yeah, as far as like what I do now is more related to how I feel myself, how I like get ready for the race. Like I try not to eat too close to the race. If I eat something, it's like a bag of chips or something. And if it's like qualifying, I try to just chill basically, just to be as relaxed as possible. um and but more, it's honestly more, most of it comes down to how I'm feeling myself. And then I've have enough experience to lean on now where I feel like I can just be confident and um comfortable with the situation that's going to come, because you're just it's going to happen. Like you have enough experience to where you have the intuitions to be able to then go and take advantage of those intuitions, and whatnot. So the only time I had a different pre-race ritual was when I was terrified, basically, because I didn't know what was going to happen. And then every other time is like just chill and then making sure I don't eat too close to the race, so I'm not like having a food coma when I'm on track, basically. But,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Man, I always eat a huge meal right before I drive. I like stuff
Oh my
myself.
god,
I
fat
just,
burrito.
Couldn't
dude,
do it.
yeah,
I couldn't do it,
I
dude.
just feel like I
Couldn't
focus
do it.
better when I'm like not hungry. If I'm hungry, then I feel like I
Oh.
don't focus as well.
Yeah, well, I agree. I don't want to be hungry while I'm driving. That's why, like, if I like, it's like 2 hours. Like, I have a 2 hour rule. Like, if I have like a proper meal 2 hours before, and then I have like a snack beforehand. Like when I get in the before I get in the car, and then I make sure I've drank before I got in the car, and then my have like maybe a water bottle in the car to sip on if I need, like, it's in the system, like a
Yeah.
tube in your mouth. But anyways, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I agree. It's more how I feel than what I do.
Mhm.
Um, okay. Tim Brewski asked, what are the similarities between flying and driving or driving on track? I truly thought I would enjoy flying as I flew a bunch with my dad in a 172 when I was a kid.
Yep.
Does that mean something to you?
Yep, it does.
Okay.
Nice.
However, it was painfully boring compared to what I expected when I tried to start private lessons. I never got to the point of practicing the different stalls either. Maybe it went too smoothly? Question mark.
Poor fella.
Uh,
Yeah, I like it depends, I think, on who you are, I guess. But as far as like the similarities, like,
Wait,
like,
first of all, tell people what you do with like why you have a plane and what you do with a plane and what your plane is.
yeah, that's a great segue to why I did this. So I, like, obviously travel a lot, and I live in Charlotte. So, like, all the tracks are pretty much up and down the East Coast, from Florida to Wisconsin, and obviously the a couple races on the West Coast, but most everything's on the East Coast. And when I was younger, I just thought it would be so cool to be able to, like, fly and like be able to get myself from point A to point B. And then being in Charlotte, I was like, oh man, like it's even like more practical now because I'm like in the center of the East Coast to go, north or south or whatever. So like I got it because it was like purely practical, uh, and I thought it would also be fun, for sure. And like a lot of racing drivers have gone and gotten their pilot's license, uh, and they do it because of exactly the reason that I did it, was to fly themselves to tracks, to not deal with going into big airports and the hustle and bustle of that, like being able to control your own time, because like that is something that we don't have control of, is our own time, because we are always going from here to there, and like it's just nice to be able to be on your own watch on those travel days. So having control over that is like a purely just, it feels good. But like, to what you're saying, like as far as it being boring, like I can get that. Like the second you take off, like push cruise control or like the autopilot, and you're just waiting. Like you're just you're just
Yeah,
waiting. But there's like different types of flying. Like if you are flying to just fly, to like enjoy flying, like go learn on a small runway. Like like that's like so much more fun. Like I learned out of a small runway, like near our house. It's like 2,300 feet long, and like if you don't even know what that scale really is, like your standard like big runway at an airport is like 6,000 to 10,000 feet long, basically, and
right.
they're like 150 feet wide. This little runway was 2,300 feet long and 35 feet wide where it was good. Because when I say where it's good, is like the edges of the runway weren't exactly straight, because asphalt is kind of breaking up along the side, and like the wings are like 32 feet long. So like if you imagine like going down this runway, like you're like kind of got to be on it, and like that, trying to like be precise and like really nail the numbers. Like, and when I mean nail the numbers, like not being too fast as you're coming in, because if you're too fast when you're coming into land, like the plane will just continue to fly, it will not land,
Right.
because you have too much energy. You like, if you brake too late going into turn one, you're not going to be able to make the corner because you have too much energy going into the corner. Like in this case, like if you're 5 or 10 miles an hour too fast on the way in, like you're going to float all the way down that runway before the thing even sets down.
Right.
So like that whole process to me was like so fun to like always have to, like, you're coming into land, being on the numbers, and when I say on the numbers, making sure you're at the correct approach speed, so that you can then nail the spot that you need to touch down so that you don't overrun the runway. And like that's like where a different type of flying would be more entertaining for him, maybe bush flying. And like bush flying is more or less like, you're going in the backcountry, finding grass strips and like flying by the seat of your pants, not even really looking at the airspeed indicator half the time, because you're just feeling it, and like that type of flying is like way more fun than what type of flying that I do. Like the type of flying that I do is strictly like A to B.
Muting.
Yes, commuting. That's all it is. Like, I have a fun commuter. Like, my commuter is fun to fly if I want to treat it like that, because it does land pretty short and it does take off pretty short. But yeah, like you gotta get what you want out of it. If you're thinking 172s are gonna be fun to fly, like those suckers are boring as hell. Like, they barely climb on a summer day, and they just are a slush box, like with super sloppy controls. It's like driving your mom's 50s freaking like station wagon down the road. Like, who thinks that's fun? Like, that's not fun.
I don't know.
Like,
No.
People
yeah,
at
let's
car
get a
shows.
Miata and like have a good time on a little autocross. Like, that's what
Right. Yeah.
bush flying
Yeah.
is like. That's what that's like.
So you said that you use it as like a to save time, but the plane you're flying is much slower than like a commercial plane. Is it just that you
Correct.
can operate on your own schedule?
Yes, and it goes. I mean, it goes 200 miles an hour. So obviously, it is slow, relative to a jet. But when you input the amount of time that you have to lead into for traveling, right? Like, you have to get to the airport 30 to 45 minutes before boarding, at least.
At least that's cutting it
Most
close.
guys,
Yeah.
that's cutting it close, right?
Yep.
And then you've got to leave for the airport. You've got to park at the airport. Then you have your boarding time, and like by the time you like have done all that, that takes like 2.5 hours from like door to like getting on the plane or taking off. And
Yep.
then you have the hour and a half long or 2 hour long flight it is to get somewhere. And then you have the same deal on the other end. You've got to get your rental car, you've got to get off the plane if you're on the back, and like there's all this time on either end, that adds up. And like, for me going to Wisconsin, Road America, Charlotte to Road America is going to be 4 hours. So I'm leaving tomorrow to go to Road America to coach, and it's going to take me 4 hours to get there. And but the thing is, it's going to take me 30 minutes to get to the airport, 15 minutes to pre-flight, and I'll be up in the air in 45 minutes from when I
Dude,
leave
that's so
to
badass.
being in the air.
Yeah.
And then they literally like, and then I get a rental car when I land, and they have the rental car like at the plane. And then
Dude.
and then I land somewhere like 10 minutes from the track. And but
feel
the thing
like-
is, like, the
I
rental
feel like
car
you
is
found a
like
cheat
not
code.
like anything. What's up?
I feel like you found a cheat code.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, like, the rental car is not like more expensive than a standard rental car. It's actually cheaper in some respects because it's in a small town. So like the small town is like, yes, we want you to rent a car because
Right.
they like are in a small town. Yeah, and then like the actual cost of it is like basically if you book a plane ticket, like the actual cost of the plane is probably it's about 15 to 20% more than an actual plane ticket. So
Yeah.
yeah. So that's how
So
I
then
justify it.
And then a piggyback question from that, from our friend Zach, who is the friend I told you about who works at the Wright Pat Air Force facility in Dayton, Ohio, with the museum. Didn't you just go to
Oh,
that, or did I tell you to go to that?
the one in Ohio?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was a different one. It was a different one. I went to a really big one, and then you sent me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Zach's offered us to come fly their little simulators, which we still not little. They're big
Oh, wait.
simulators, which we need to do.
Wait, it's in Dayton? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, it was that. It was that one. That was right. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
That is where you went.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So Zach piggybacked on that. I'm curious to hear your reply about the fun and the flying relating to driving, because for me, nothing will compare to low levels in the 130 or the 17. Doing 300 knots, 200 to 300 feet off the deck, modified contour will definitely let you feel the speed. Did that mean
Yeah.
anything to you?
I think he was
Because I
referring to
lost
the
me.
I think he was referring to the AC-130, which is like a pretty large aircraft that has big guns on it.
That one's in Call of
Oh.
Duty.
y- yeah, it's like big. It's like proper like cool deal. Like I think they would do like on like the charts and sectionals that we have. Like they have like literal pathways for these big planes to be aware of because like they do like low level flying in certain areas. So
Got
it's
it.
it's pretty. Yeah, that would be really neat to like be flying this big behemoth of a school bus essentially on an autocross course, but with like slicks and a big motor.
Yeah,
Like,
no kidding.
can you imagine like like a
Yeah.
bus with like proper racing slicks and then like 2,000 horsepower? Like
No.
that's what like an AC-130 is like
Sure.
with guns
Okay, so
pointing out of it.
he asked if you want to continue getting your ratings for flying. I don't know if they call
Oh,
it rating or that they call it ratings.
yep.
And what's your favorite plane that you've flown, and what's your favorite car that you've driven? Rapid fire. Like
Yeah.
a
Yeah, so I got my commercial rating just because I thought it would be fun. Like there's different ratings. So you get your private instrument rating, or sorry, you get your private, which is like essentially your license to learn how to fly. Because like you've learned how to fly, but now you're actually going to be able to go somewhere with your
Mm,
license. So you're putting yourself into situations where you're seeing weather, etc. And then your instrument rating is typically the next one that you get, and that allows you to then fly through clouds and all sorts of different types of weather. And if you have your private, you're not actually allowed to fly in clouds. But as an instrument rating, you then are allowed to do that, so you can take off if there's clouds, and like you can just go through them. You know, like if you're trying to, if like the deck of the clouds are like 1,000 feet off the ground, you would not want to be a new private pilot flying that day because there's antennas that are about 1,000 feet off the ground that you can't fly into the clouds because you're not allowed to. So the instrument ratings, the next one, and that was actually probably the most fun one to get for me because of how process oriented the things are. You have to fly this approach and to be able to get under the clouds. And like if the clouds are 300 feet off the ground, right? Like you have to fly this specific approach path because essentially there's obstacles. So the pathway that you are set on knows where these obstacles are, so that you don't fly into them if you're in the clouds, because obviously you can't see them if you're in the clouds.
right.
And so you fly this approach, and then you then fly this glide slope that then leads you down into the runway. And like when you pop out of the clouds and you're 200 feet off the ground and the runway is like literally in your face, like it's like the coolest thing, because you just had been literally just engulfed looking at your instruments and flying this approach path, and
That
then
sounds actually
you
kind of
pop out of the clouds and you're
terrifying.
like, boom, it's like right in front of your face. Like
Is that
Ooh.
scary?
it's awesome. It's so cool. It's so cool. But yeah, then the commercial was it was just a fun rating. But as far as anything after that, I don't think I'm going to continue doing anything more.
Mm,
The commercial rating was more or less just, you do all of the same maneuvers that you have to get your private license, but you do them to a tighter standard. Like they essentially, in your private, they pull the power on you to simulate an engine failure, and you have to land on the runway. But with the commercial rating, they pull the power and they say you have to land on the runway, but you have to land within 100 feet of this specific point. So like doing all of those practice maneuvers to like land like on a specific point is like, it's a lot of fun. Like, because you're like flying by the seat of the pants, you're like managing your energy in the air. You're controlling lateral bounds and vertical bounds of energy that you have to try to make sure you nail it. And like that whole aspect of flying was just like super fun on that. But I've flown, which leads me into a story. I've flown a Cirrus SR-22, which is, I was just, essentially I was just figuring out what we wanted to do. A Cirrus has like a parachute, so it's like kind of a, if the engine fails, apparently you just pull that and you float down and you live. Yeah,
that sounds
but
not fun.
Yeah, it's better than the alternative.
Well, yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, so and then I flew like a Mooney, which is like an older type plane that is very efficient with like a 4-cylinder engine. And then I own a Bonanza, a V35 Bonanza, which is like V-tailed deal, and I think that's a blast. I think that's super fun. But as far as like the story that I have, when I first I was trying to get my license. Danny, my wife, was like, you've been saying you want to do this, like just do it. So I'm like, oh, okay. So like I was like, all right, like here we go. I got the green light, like we're doing it.
Yep.
So I started it, I got it, and she was like, but I have no guarantees that I'm gonna like it. And
Oh.
like I'm like, so I was like nervous, like if she was even gonna like it,
Yeah.
and we were flying like little like shitbox, Piper Cherokees, which are a school plane that are essentially the beat up school cars of today's instruction.
Okay.
But it's a Cherokee, and the paint's like peeling off of it. It looks like crap. Like you look at it, you're like, I don't want to be in that. That's what I learned on. And I'm like, I get my private, and she comes with me, and she's like, yeah, I don't really want to be in here. I'm like, me neither. So once I got my instrument rating, we then tried like a different plane, which was the Cirrus. And well, first of all, the day I got my instrument rating, it was at this guy's like house. So what I mean by that is there's airports that are small that have homes essentially with driveways, but to the runway. So like it's called an air park, and people live at this airport. And they could land and then literally pull their plane into their garage, and then they're good. So like the guy that I went to get my rating with, which is the guy who did my check ride that approved me to get my rating, he lived at this airport. So we do the check ride, I get my rating, I pass, and I'm leaving, and I'm gonna go back to the airport that I was based at. And I'm sitting at the end of the runway, and this guy, in a non-towered airport, not all airports have towers that control traffic flow in and out.
Right.
So when you have a non-towered airport, you have a common frequency that is on the radio. So you're literally announcing your positions around the airport if you're within 10 miles of that airport. So if you're coming in to land, and you're 10 miles out, you're like, okay, I'm 10 miles out. I'm going to land on this runway, and if you have, the runway essentially as a heading that it's associated with. So for this example, 36 is the runway that's pointed north, and 18 is the runway that is pointed south. And I'm sitting on runway at the approach end of runway 36, ready to take off. And this guy's like, okay, like I'm 3 miles away. I'm about to land on runway 36. I'm like, okay, cool. So he's about here, and then he's like, okay, I'm turning, base for the approach end of this runway. And base is essentially, we do a pattern, which is a box pattern over the top of the runway. And usually it's always left-hand turns. So you take off, you turn left, and then you turn left
NASCAR.
again and fly, essentially the back straightaway in the air of the runway, and then you turn left and then left again, descending into the runway, if that makes sense. So he's in NASCAR 3, about turning on his base turn, and I'm like, all right, yeah, he's in NASCAR 3. I can take off right now. So I'm like, all right, I've got plenty of time. I'm thinking he's on NASCAR 3. I'm at start finish line. I'm about to pull out of pit lane and go and take off.
Back her up.
So
Oh,
Are
pause.
you there?
Oh, we lost you, Kenton.
yeah.
Oh, you're coming back slowly. We got robot
Oh,
Kenton.
he's a robot.
Uh-oh. We're never going to hear how the story ends. He's you sound like oh.
I.
Okay, Kenton, I think you're back.
Taking off 3-6.
Nope, you're not back. Oh no, Ken, we were so close. Oh my goodness. Tom, why don't you finish the story
What
for
do we
Kenton?
do? Well, I want to figure out what to do.
What do you mean? I don't think Ken can hear us right now.
I don't think he even knows we can.
We just like hear the story
Yeah.
like freaking popping in here and there.
As I got my eyes down the road, I'm like, oh my gosh, sorry, I'm back now. But anyways, he like he's approaching at me, and I freaking am like shitting a brick here. I'm like, I'm looking up the road, like I can
Oh my
see what's
God,
happening.
no. Yeah.
Wait, are you
I'm like,
rolling
"Are
down
you
the
kidding
runway
me,
at this
dude?"
point?
And no, I'm off the ground. Like I'm like off the ground, and he's like, I'm committed. Like I once I left the ground, I then saw him turning final, like 2 mile, like maybe 1 mile ahead of me. So I like turn off, and then I look. I'm like, dude, you're on the freaking like wrong runway, like on the radio. And he lands, and like you expect it maybe from like a student who's like coming in. He's like doesn't know the orientation of the runway. You know, he's confused with which end is which. And the dude lands and then proceeds to pull into his house.
It's the own guy's runway.
No, the dude lives there. Like the
Yeah.
dude freaking lives there. I'm like, are you shitting me? So like so there are some idiots out there, man. Like there are bonehead people that should not have a license that are in the air.
So
Which then brings me to my last story of flying, and it's with this Cirrus where we test flew it with Danny. So Danny was there, and we go up in this plane, and John Edwards, who races cars as well, who's now a pilot and flies for NetJets, introduced me to this guy because maybe I'd partner with him on owning a plane together. And so this was like when we were thinking, I'm like, okay, Danny is like, she's not sure if she wants to do this or not. And I was like, okay, well, let's fly like a somewhat nice plane because maybe she'll actually like enjoy it. So, anyways, we get in this plane with this dude. I don't know this guy, you know, and I'm like, oh, he should be fine, you know. He owns a plane, he'll be good. Like we're good. And like the second we take off, I'm like, this guy is not good. Like,
Uh-oh.
this guy is not
this is
the
like
type of person that I want to
the
be flying with.
the track day instructor takes you out for some
Yeah,
laps.
it's exactly what it is, man. Like it is exactly that. Like the second you get into someone's like in driving, it's the same thing as flying. I just thought like coming into flying, I'm like, oh, everyone who has a pilot's license should know how to fly, and they should know. Like they should know. It's harder to get your pilot's license, but it's not not the case.
Yeah.
Like with driving, like it's the same. If you have it in the driving side, like and you're co-driving with someone, if they've got it, like you feel comfortable. But in this case, it's the same thing with flying. You know it instantly.
It's kind of cool
Lovely.
how like just different facets of like a barrier of entry to learn it, and there's so much to know about it. Like anything like that, like it can always come back to like driving a car. Essentially, it's like
Yep,
everything's always the same.
Yep, totally.
Well,
I have more stories, but frick, that was a lot. Sorry.
you're good, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, when I was a kid, I wanted to fly too. So like, just like hearing you talk about flying, like I tried to join the Air Force, but I was told by somebody at some point that, ooh, if you say, okay, this is the job I want, and then if you don't end up with that job, you can like get like honorably discharged or whatever out of the military. And I was like, I want to do that because I wanted to fly helicopters, right? So I've
Yeah.
talked to the recruiters that were in the high school. I'm like, hey, I want to fly helicopters. Like, how do I like do that thing? And I like explain the thing, and they're like, that's not how that works. And I was like, well, I just want to fly helicopters. They're like, yeah, you and everyone else. Everyone wants to fly the helicopters. And I was like, okay, never mind. I'm gonna go hang out with my friends and talk about StarCraft. Like,
Good times.
but yeah,
Good times.
Kenton, thank you for so much for coming on the podcast. That was fun. We'll have to have you on some other time so we can get more racing stories. I feel like we like literally just like scratched the surface.
It's true, yeah.
Yep, there's definitely more like poop stories and puke stories. And
Nice.
That's
plenty of
sad that
those.
I can I can already think of another poop story that involves you, and like that's so sad that I can just think of one right away. But what are you doing this weekend? You're just coaching?
Yeah, I'm coaching Chip and Matt Romer in the P1 car, the SCCA car on Wednesday,
Cool.
Thursday, and then I'm home this weekend until SRO Barber.
Sweet.
Nice.
DJ, what are you doing this week?
I'm gonna try to drive that Cleveland autocross event just because it's right before Solo Nationals. Oh, guys. Oh, we should announce this at the beginning of the show. We're having a Lizard Brain podcast meetup at Solo Nationals.
Yep. Tuesday night at 6:30 approximately at the Zebulon paddock, which is the first one straight ahead when you come in the gates, by my understanding. And we're planning on food, drink, music, party.
Mario
But
Kart.
yeah.
Bring your Switches. Your Nintendo
We'll
Switches.
do more announcements for real.
Yeah. We'll make a post because I don't know how, like, we have the downloads, but I don't know how many people make it to like 1 hour 50. Also, Tom, why are we doing Tuesday? Everyone's gonna be there Wednesday, but not everyone's gonna be there Tuesday.
Because Wednesday's the big banquet night of like the driver of eminence and all this stuff.
Yeah. That's true. We can't really impede with that. So if you want to come, get the Solo Nats early, I guess.
Yeah. Or we'll see you later.
we'll have 2 next year.
And I am starting to drive my happy ass to Solo Nationals this week. Ken, you want to go autocross?
This weekend?
Next week? Next week? Tuesday, Wednesday? What are you doing? I'm kidding.
Rick.
Fly in. It's at an airport.
We can
flying.
We can find you something to drive, Kenton.
Oh man. Did I get my ass kicked?
We'll put you in a B-mod car. It'll be like Mazda prototype lights again.
It's true, yeah. That's sweet.
All
right.
right.
Well, Kenton, good luck at your next. Go ahead, DJ.
No,
you got the button.
You were gonna do the thing. I was just gonna hit it when it seemed right. Go ahead, Tom.
Cool. Thanks again for joining us. And good luck with the rest of the season. I know you're in the championship hunt with a couple of these, so fingers crossed. There's an outro that goes with this podcast, and I think it applies really well for you. I love your hair, and I hope you win.